Hey, what's up guys? So today we're going to be talking about the top 10 best Yu-Gi-Oh decks right now to go ahead and play. Now, if you guys are looking for deck profiles of these decks, like the deck recipes, I will also have a bunch of these pinned down below. Keep in mind that some of these are going to be added later down the line, as of course we're still in progress of uploading every single deck, but I'll eventually get a bunch of these up for you guys. Some of them are already available, so just go ahead and check the pinned comment and description, and I will also be updating this video, so if you want to come back to it when maybe your favorite deck is shown off over here. So this is actually going to be two different sections of this video. I'm going to go ahead and briefly kind of talk about the best decks in terms of statistics. As there is no big Yu-Gi-Oh events going on, we can still use the online data from Yu-Gi-Oh Scope to kind of check out what is actually going to be considered meta, or what would be in the competitive section. But I'll also give you guys kind of my thoughts, because some of you guys came in while I was live streaming asking, what do you think is the best deck right now? So it's going to be kind of like a two-parter. So first off, in no particular order, I would consider these, like, it's an easy top 5 for me. But in terms of the top 10, there's a lot of other decks, so I'm going to consider a top 10 plus. So going over, first off, what I would say is one of the best decks is the Dogmatika / Invoked. That is a very powerful deck. One of these is right here. And another deck over here is the Eldlich. So both of these are very powerful, as Eldlich did kind of get a little bit hurt, depending on which variant that of course you are playing. But losing out on the access to your Jet Synchron can definitely hurt, and of course the O-line combos there. But there is alternative ways to go ahead and actually play and utilize the engine. There's a lot of other tech cards. I've seen people use Recover, Plague Spreader as other options and alternatives. But Eldlich is just a very resilient deck. The reason why I would consider it very powerful is really nothing got hit in the deck's own archetype, if that makes any sense. But on top of that, it just can come back again and again. It has those resources with, of course, the Elixir cards. And then on top of that, the Dogmatika Invoked is a very powerful deck as well. Technically, it's kind of an anti-extra deck, so sometimes against certain decks, and one deck that I think is really powerful right now is Dinosaurs. I would also consider this in my top 5 over here, and that is because the Dinosaurs don't really need an extra deck, and they're very easy to go ahead and have access to and play it. It's actually the most popular deck. And then on top of that, I would also put the Rokket Dragon Link variants, kind of mixing in some Dragoonities in it too, but I would consider Dragoonities like a step down. But if we're talking about Rokket Dragon Link, that deck is absolutely explosive. It pops off and makes one of the most nastiest boards turn 1, as it has a lot of potential cards to actually negate the spells and traps of the game. And then I would also consider any variant of like Flame Knight, Isolde, Warrior Turbo decks. Those would also be considered very powerful, as well as we have Trap Does Shoot banned for reasons, but being able to access, knowing exactly what your opponent has, you can look at your opponent's entire hand with, of course, the Smoke Grenade. That card is very powerful, and I feel like that's why I would consider those in the top 5 over here. So like I said, it's a really easy top 5 for me. Here it is visually, because I like doing this, and this is not in any particular order, but I would consider Rokket Dragon Link, Dino, Eldlich, Warrior Soul, and then also the Dogmatika / Invoked engines over here. And then on top of that, to kind of also provide some insight and kind of check out if I was right, because I'm not going to change my list. This is what I originally thought for top 5 over here. We're going to use this website called Yu-Gi-Oh Scope over here, and it's a really awesome website, and I'm going to go ahead and have it here, and I'll also give you guys the duel still. I'll make it a little bit smaller so you guys can still check out the duel as we go ahead and talk a little bit more about it. But anyways, so in terms of the most popular deck, again, since we don't have access to our online stats, let me go and actually spectate another game, unless we're going to go ahead and do game 3. So I'm just going to go ahead and spectate some meta games so you guys can go ahead and have some background gameplay and kind of see what people are playing. The Tri-Brigade isn't a bad deck also. It's kind of on my radar, but I wouldn't consider it top 5. But they hosted meta, so hopefully the other guy's playing something meta. Oh, we got a quit immediately. Anyways, let's go ahead and this one says only meta. All right, perfect, just started. All right, so we see the Numeron immediately activated. But anyways, in terms of the most played deck right now, again, this is just using online data. it's kind of difficult to gauge on, you know, real life and events, as there's nothing really going on right now. So Dinosaurs over here have actually one of the highest play rate and actually a very high win rate. We actually have them at 61%, and then Infernobles at 64%. And even though I'm going to list Monarchs as one of my decks that I'll consider in the maybe like top 10-ish area, it actually has a very low win rate. We're looking at 36% over here, which I was surprised by. And then there's also, you see Burning Abyss with that really low win percent as well. So for my top 5, you know, I also mentioned the Rokket Dragon, it's basically just Dragon Link spam. It's at 71%. That actually has one of the highest win rates. There's actually 2 different variants of the deck that's actually doing quite well. And I also mentioned the Dogmatika over here is very powerful as well. And we'll talk a little bit about other decks as well. Orcust is actually only at a 46% win rate, but hopping into what I would consider in the top maybe 10 plus here, because like I said, I listed my top 5, but for the top 10 list, these are other decks that would be slotted in the other 5 slots, as some of them are kind of interchangeable. So I would consider Phantom Knight / Burning Abyss definitely in the top 10-ish area. The deck is actually pretty strong, and I recently covered a variant where you can actually loop your opponent's entire hand so they can't even actually get a chance to play Yugioh, which I guess technically with a variance with like S0, that's another you cannot Yugioh deck variant. But still, the deck can still play. It's not like a cheesy deck where, like, once you lose out on your, like, Numeron card, it's, like, game over. A lot of times, once you defeat the S0, some decks literally do not have another card to go into. They rely off that one play, which makes it so you can't play, which the Burning Abyss Phantom Knight build that goes for the Sky Scourge can still actually play like a normal deck. And then I also put, like, Numerons on the top 10, because if you are able to go ahead and successfully pull it off, yeah, you've basically won the game. I would also consider Monarchs in like a top 10 list over here, as they are still very, very consistent with being able to go ahead and have Pantheism at 3, of course, with the newer ban list over here. And we also did a deck profile recently on that one, but the deck kind of loses out to certain things that have come back into the game, like Feather Duster. If they set up not enough monsters, or specifically not enough negates, specifically saying you cannot special summon, or with Majesty's Fiend making it so your opponent can't even activate effects, I would consider that very powerful. But if they just go, okay, impermanence, you need your other follow-up plays, and if you don't happen to have your setups with, like, let's say Domain, and then you don't have your Escalation, and then your Stormforth ready to go in and be active during your opponent's turn, a lot of times they're just going to face roll over you with that, like, one disruption, so to speak. But, I mean, judging by the list, I was actually surprised by this, and let me know, guys, in the comment section below. Did you guys think Monarchs would be this bad in terms of win rate? I mean, keep in mind, again, there could be a lot of people playing them and maybe never played Monarchs, but I feel like that's an older deck that a lot of people are coming back to, and I don't think it's that bad. It actually has one of the lowest win rates in one of the, as an archetype as of right now. And then next up, I would consider Pendulum a very good deck as well. I would consider this a deck that is still very viable, as Yu-Gi-Oh! Has moved into a direction where it's very negate monster effects heavy. There's not too much negate spells, so you're still going to be able to, most of the time, be able to still kind of deal with potentially a board that is already established with Pendulums. Next up, Adamancipator. I got some new builds over here that we'll showcase off, but losing Block Dragon obviously hurts a lot, but that deck is still very viable. You can still make very good boards turn 1. I understand lots of people are not interested in playing that deck now without Block Dragon, but I still think it's actually very, very powerful. Next up, this is a card that will be even more powerful. Any of those banished Gren Maju variants are looking actually pretty good with, of course, that new card that is going to be able to banish your opponent's entire extra deck. And it banishes yours too, but, like, you don't care about yours. But I recently actually covered this, and there's nothing that really changed on the ban list. You can play Harpy's Feather Duster, but basically they're getting a new card, and this one is kind of on my radar because of that. Because when you have the ability to go ahead and tell your opponent, I've ripped your entire extra deck out of the zone for the entire turn, a lot of decks, they need their extra deck to even function. Therefore, your turn comes around, okay, I hit you with Gren Maju, you couldn't summon because, well, you lost your entire extra deck, and any monster that, let's say, they normal summon, they were going to use to combo and get those bigger monsters out, it's most of the time it's not going to have very much attack, and Gren Maju can get insane amounts of attack, and he can one-punch your opponent. Next up, Mystic Mind actually has quite a good win rate also. If we look at any Mystic Mind Burn, it's at 55% right now. It's just a really annoying thing to run into, so I totally get it. ABC is actually not a bad deck also, which has a 53% win rate right now, which is very powerful as well. I also mentioned Prank Kids on this list over here. This one's more of a, technically, yeah, it's a top 10 plus, so it's going to go over 10, because this is something that's not technically out right now, but I would also consider that very powerful as well. And then I considered Invoked Shaddolls still to be very strong, especially if you're able to go ahead and potentially turn 1, go ahead and throw out Winda. You can instantly win against a lot of different decks, and Rokket lets you go ahead and do that. Next up, I would say Orcust. I was surprised by Orcust's win-loss ratio here, because I was like, maybe I'm just playing it wrong, but like, the deck is very fragile to any disruptions, as you don't have Harp Horror for that extra continuous, thing for more plays. I really feel like Orcust isn't as powerful as it used to be. And a lot of people definitely felt the same, because I was like, how do you guys feel about Orcust? They're like, nah, it's not even that great. Even with Rusty Bardiche in addition to the deck, I think that there's a lot of other Yu-Gi-Oh decks that can actually make a board that's just as strong and not that frail to, of course, losing to any hand traps, as I feel like that deck is super susceptible to hand traps, especially like Nibiru. I know you can technically make other cards to go ahead and stop it, but a lot of times it's just difficult for that deck to go second into a board that is Break My Board, because when you run too many cards like Dark Ruler No More in Orcust or Lightning Storms, a lot of times you just don't have the combo, and you really need that consistency of having the easy access to, let's say, the dangers or anything to really help extend your combos. Next up, though, yeah, I pretty much covered most of the stuff that I wanted to go over, with the exception of Salmangreat. That's actually a deck that has surprisingly a very high win rate over here. If we go ahead and check out where Salmangreat is, it's at 53, so that's not bad for that. But yeah, so we can have a visual representation of what I kind of consider my top 5 and top 10 over here. And let me know, guys, if I missed out on anything that you guys think is really good. I did want to go ahead and talk briefly about another deck, though, which is the Sleeper meta. I think Unchained is actually a really good archetype, as you have the ability to go ahead and use your opponent's monsters as material. It's a pretty decent deck, too, as well. But yeah, just for visual representation, this is my top 5. This is my top 10 plus, as I definitely added, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, this is what I would consider in the top 10 plus-ish area for other decks that I didn't mention over here, obviously. I consider these to be a little bit better. Curious to know if you guys felt like I put anything too high, or if you felt like there's another deck that I missed out on. But were you guys surprised by the actual statistics? I know, again, we don't have these tournaments, so the best way is kind of to look at what people are playing. If you guys are wondering also, just to see like the highest deck that is being played right now, like in terms of how many players are playing it, Dinosaurs is number 1, Infer Noble is number 2, Monarch, and then Salmangreat is actually still very, very popular, as I was kind of surprised by that. Also, I wanted to go ahead, I wanted to sort it by win-loss ratio, because that would kind of make more sense, right? What's the best deck? However, one thing to mention with this is when you have a very low pool of data, meaning that there's like, let's say, under 1,000 wins, it could be like one player that's playing some really strange thing. Like, for example, Mermail Red Eyes has a 72 win % over here, but that's very like specific, and we only have 46 duels with this deck. So I would say anything under 1,000 is kind of hard to judge realistically, although there's so many different variants of the Rokket Dragon, Guard Dragon variant decks. But anyways, yeah, guys, that would be my list for the top 10 plus Yu-Gi-Oh decks, as well as statistically, what is actually good and my thoughts on it. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel here and you want to be up to date on a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, as I will be giving you guys deck profiles of this, new ban list, comes out. And people kind of evolve, we'll kind of check in, because we've only had it for just a little bit under a week, but we already have a lot of numbers to go and show. But we'll have to wait and see if anything else comes out, as Prank Kids are definitely going to be one of those to look out for, because that's coming out very soon. But anyways, take care, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video. And I'm out. Peace.